Hi everyone. So today we're going to be learning how to make chips and salsa, and we are actually going to make the chips from tortilla chips and bake them in the oven. This is sort of a healthier option because they're baked instead of fried, and you don't really, there's a bunch of chemicals and stuff added to chips. So let's see how you guys like these ones homemade. So some groups are going to be using flour tortillas and some are going to be using corn, because they have a little bit of a different texture and they're made out of different ingredients, like one's made with flour and one's made with corn. But I'm gonna be using flour tortillas today. So first, what you wanna do is preheat the oven to 400. So you're gonna wanna do that at the beginning of the lab, because it takes time for the oven to preheat, and then it also takes time for the chips to cook. So first we're gonna start off cutting them into chip shapes. So you wanna just do like a pie shape. So first you wanna cut them in half. And then I'm going to put a towel under my cutting board. So that might be something you guys want to do if you notice that your cutting board is sort of sliding a lot, like this one just did. So that will help keep it a little more sturdy. So then I'm going to cut it in half again the other way. Now you want to make sure you have sharp knives. My knife isn't really very sharp, so it's kind of having some issues. And I layered 3 tortillas on top of each other. So now you're just gonna kind of do like pizza slices. Yeah, so mine are kind of uneven because of this knife, but not all chips are perfect anyways. Okay, so you probably wanna press down on them. Okay, so as you can see, they're in little tortilla chip shapes. So now I'm going to spray my pan so that they don't stick. And then we're just gonna layer them evenly. So for the tortilla chips and the salsa, we will be needing a lime. So first, we're just gonna juice it so that we have the juice ready. So I'm gonna be putting the juice in here. So to juice it, you might think that you want to put it in this way because it's sort of shaped that way, but you actually want to put it in this side down, because then you get the most amount of juice out. So we're just gonna squeeze that. All right, and then we're just gonna put that aside or throw it away. Okay. So to go on the chips, we're doing a mixture of olive oil and lime juice. So we're gonna be putting it in this bowl. So for the lime juice, we just need a teaspoon and a half. So we're just gonna use this. Here's 1 teaspoon, and then find our half teaspoon. And remember the difference between teaspoon and tablespoon. Teaspoon is TSP, and it's usually like lowercase, and then tablespoon is TBSP. And then olive oil, 1 teaspoon of that also. Okay. So now we're just gonna mix that up, and you guys are gonna be using a brush to brush this on the chips. That's what you're supposed to use, but I don't have a brush, so I'm just gonna use a spatula. It doesn't have to be perfect, of course, but you just wanna kinda lightly brush them all, help them crisp up, and then the lime juice will give them some flavor. And then you're gonna wanna do both sides. All right, so 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then 1/4 teaspoon of chili powder. And you know, of course, this doesn't really need to be perfect either. You can also like add different spices. You know, you can use more of it for more flavor. And then you're just gonna wanna kind of sprinkle it on top. Try to do this as evenly as possible. You can kind of pinch it to make it be more even. All right, so this is what they're gonna look like before you put them in the oven. So now we're just gonna put them in the oven and set a timer. Don't forget to set a timer. We're gonna do it for 7 minutes at first. So now while those cook, all right, so the recipe in the instructions, it says 2 tomatoes. So I already have 1 tomato diced up in here. Now I'm gonna show you how to dice it up. I'm gonna show you 2 different ways too. So first, cut off the top, and then there's that little stem left in there, so we can just sort of cut that out. Be careful at this step though, because you don't want to eat that, so we're just gonna throw these away. So first we're gonna cut them in slices and then cube it with half of it. So make sure you have the claw hand so it will kind of miss your fingers and it won't cut off your finger. You just might get a little scratches, but so first we're just gonna slice it. You want to try to make them as even as possible. All right, so we're gonna do that with half of them. So then you can kind of layer them, or you can do it one at a time, but layering it is faster. And then we're just gonna slice those again, which you guys might like more because this way takes out all these like seeds and that part, and I know some people don't really like that part. So first you're gonna cut it into 4s, so down the middle and then the other way. So now you got this wedge, and then you're gonna cut out that part. Make sure you are careful doing that. And then you can also see there might be some in there, so you can just kind of scrape that out. And then you got this part left over that you can just throw away. Now we're gonna do that with this one. And then we're just gonna cube that. All right, so here are the tomatoes that I didn't cut out the inside, so you can see it's kind of more liquidy and has all the seeds. And then this is it where I cut out the inside, so it's kind of more. All right, so we're just gonna put that in the bowl with my already cut tomato. And the timer just went off for the chips. Let me take a look at those. Right, they actually look pretty good. So I don't think we're gonna do it for longer. So you kind of want to test out the time by looking at them. Everything doesn't always cook for the exact time that the directions say, so you just want to check. So this is how they turned out. So now we're going to be chopping or dicing the onion. So I just want to take off this outside layer. You can take more off once we cut it. So you're gonna want to cut off one end. And then, okay, so right here is the root. So first we're gonna cut it in half. Just kind of go through the root. All right, so we're just gonna use 1/2 to show. So my eyes are watering really bad already. So you wanna leave this intact because that is going to keep the onion together, keep everything from falling apart, and it will just make it a lot easier. So now you're gonna make sure you're holding your knife with your pointer and your thumb. So we're just gonna make cuts as close to the root as possible. Make sure you're doing that claw. Alright, so you just sort of did them all parallel down as close to this root as you can get. And then, okay, so if the diameter is pretty big, you can also kind of do a cut in the middle to help make the dices smaller. So you don't want to press down, but you want to hold it all together. And then, using our claw hand, we're just gonna dice them. Now the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of onion. Here's 1. Just gonna add that to the bowl with everything else. You can add a little extra if you. So lastly, we are going to be adding our jalapeno. So we're going to be, the recipe calls for 1 to 2 teaspoons, but first you're just gonna add 1, taste it, see if it's too hot or if it's not hot enough. If you want more, just go ahead and add the rest. So first we're gonna cut off the top. Now this jalapeno is pretty small. Some of them are usually bigger. And then we're going to cut it down the middle, which I just did horribly. And cut it down the middle again, so into 4s. And then we're just gonna scrape off the seeds. So the seeds is where most of the hotness comes from. Now make sure not to touch your eyes after this because it will burn. So now we got 4 little pieces and we're just gonna sort of roughly chop them. And then it wants them minced, the recipe calls for. So we're just gonna sort of just chop them all nice and small. And I'm gonna add it all in there. Lastly, we have our cilantro. So you can kind of just take the stems and just pull it through. There's some. You just don't want any like big stems. Okay, so we're just gonna use those. Bunch it up. And just chop. Now, some people don't like the taste of cilantro, so you don't have to add this. I'm just gonna add that in there. With our, lastly, we need our teaspoon of lime juice. This is with the lime juice that we squeezed earlier for the chips. So next we're just gonna mix it all up. And then add salt to taste. You don't add too much at first because you can always add more, but you can't take it away. So there we go.